I first met Song Chong in my role as a legal assistant. Her short hair barely touched her ears, and she seemed both efficient and melancholic. That was my first impression of her. The first thing she asked when she saw us was, "Where is Tao Ning? How is Ning Ning doing?" Tao Ning's real name was Tao Zi, a child abducted by Song Chong. They lived together for 5 months, and Song Chong gave her a new name, Tao Ning. Later, I asked her why she chose the name Tao Ning. Song Chong said, "I'm not very educated, couldn't think of a good name, so I just wished for her to have peace in the future." Song Chong was the 35th woman I interviewed, and coincidentally, I had just turned 35 that year as well. Since 2014, I had been interviewing female prisoners, wanting the public to see the blood and tears behind women's crimes. When I met Song Chong, it was my 5th year conducting interviews. Song Chong was only 20 when she was arrested, silent like a camel in the desert. She nodded in acknowledgement of all her crimes. She had abducted 8-year-old Tao Zi. The case was straightforward. 20-year-old Song Chong had abducted 8-year-old Tao Zi, and when Song took her to the hospital, the police discovered them. During her arrest, Song Chong did not resist or attempt to flee. She confessed to her crimes without hesitation. Tao Zi's parents were furious, involving many media outlets to sensationalize the case, causing a stir in the small town. They insisted that Song Chang's actions constituted human trafficking, not just abduction, a single-word difference that carried vastly different legal consequences. Song Chong, you had no intention of trafficking people. This case can at most be ruled as abduction. Abduction and trafficking are not the same thing. You need to be clear on that. Attorney Zhou was frustrated, saying, "How am I supposed to help you if you act like this? You're throwing away tens of thousands of yuan in legal fees for nothing." Song Chong said nothing, lowering her head to pick at her hands, countering with silence. It wasn't until I took out a small purple star with the word Ning written in the center that she reacted. "Tao Ning wanted me to give this to you." "Tao Zi. It's Tao Zi," the lawyer corrected me. Song Chong ignored the correction. "Tao Ning. How is Tao Ning?" I nodded and then shook my head. Tao Ning is doing okay, given all the attention. But not that well either. She's emotionally unstable. She secretly slipped this to me, and I think she wanted you to have it. The star was stained with tears, and the word Ning was smudged. Song Chong clutched the star tightly, pressing it close to her chest, close to her heart. "Can you tell the truth? Tao Ning needs you, and society needs the truth." I took her left hand. Though it was midsummer, her hand was as cold as ice. Song Chong tried to pull away but failed. Her fingers gradually warmed up, and she barely, imperceptibly, nodded her head. "I investigated you and found out that you've been in contact with Tao Ning's parents. Starting in April of this year, you transferred 10,000 yuan to them every month for 3 months, then a lump sum of 50,000 in July. After that, you left with Tao Ning. Why?" I laid out Song Chang's transaction records. The various expenses, most of them related to Tao Zi. I do know Tao Ning's parents. The first time I met her was on March 19th of this year. Why do you remember so clearly? Because that day was my birthday. Song Chong first met Tao Zi at a barbecue stand. Brother Long, who was at least 10 years older than Song Chong, had his arm around her shoulder, grinning widely as the crowd showered him with praise. Despite being the center of attention, Song Chong sat quietly, serving tea to everyone, becoming a spectacle for others to admire. In the gathering of a dozen shirtless men, passers-by quickly avoided them, except for the 8-year-old Tao Zi, who approached them. She was a small girl, holding a little bucket filled with flowers. She raised a bunch of roses high and offered them to Brother Long. Big brother, 10 yuan per flower. Buy a bouquet for sister." Song Chong roughly counted the flowers in the small bucket. There were 20 or 30. The little girl persisted, pleading, Buy one, big brother." Brother Long counted 20 flowers, celebrating Song Chang's 20th birthday. Song Chong shook her head, tugging on Brother Long's hand and whispering, "No, it's too expensive." Her words amused Brother Long. He patted her head like she was a pet, then generously said, "If you like them, I'll buy them for you, no matter the price. Brother Long was a notorious local gangster with numerous businesses and connections. He didn't care about a few hundred yuan. He pulled out 500 yuan in cash from his wallet and stuffed it into Tao Zi's bucket. The extra is your tip. Tao Zi smiled, her eyes squinting with joy, and leaned her face against Brother Long's arm, sweetly saying thank you. From where Song Chong sat, she couldn't see what the two were talking about. All she could see was Brother Long bending down slightly, laughing heartily at something Tao Zi said. The next second, Tao Zi kissed Brother Long on the cheek. Brother Long, pleased, took out another bill and handed it to her. The people at the table teased them, making jokes. At this point in the story, Song Chong gagged reflexively, covering her mouth tightly, swallowing hard to suppress the nausea. No one thought anything was wrong. At most, they might have remarked on how clever she was. After a long pause, Song Chong continued, but I was truly disgusted. A wave of nausea rose from my stomach. I wanted to scream, to curse, to flip the table. Song Chong lowered her eyes, and I could see her eyelashes trembling. But I didn't dare. I could only try desperately to suppress the urge to vomit, but I failed. I threw up anyway. She vomited, the mixture of alcohol and stomach acid splattering onto the fallen roses. The sour stench irritated Song Chang's senses as she crouched by a tree pit, retching violently. The dinner ended on a sour note. The soiled roses and Song Chong were both left on the roadside by Brother Long. Brother Long looked down at her, vomiting by the road, and casually remarked, "What a buzzkill," before leading his brothers off to the next party. Song Chong crouched by the roadside until her legs went numb, barely managing to stop retching. When she looked up, the little flower girl was standing there, quickly handing her a tissue before running away. Song Chong gestured to me. About this big, square, but crumpled from being clenched. I guess she must have hesitated for a long time before giving it to me. It was in that moment I realized why I felt so disgusted. When I saw Tao Ning, it all came back to me. Everything I once thought was warmth, kindness, and love was shattered. Song Chong gripped her fingers tightly, the skin around her fingertips already bleeding profusely. She uneasily began to recount her story to me, the story of her life from the age of 6 to 16. My parents died when I was very young, probably when I was 5, maybe 6, definitely before I started elementary school. My dad died in a mining accident. They said my mom was beaten to death by thugs hired by the coal boss when she went to demand compensation. But who really knows what happened? One day, I ran home, out of breath, laughing. But as soon as I walked through the door, I saw my mom crying. I couldn't understand what she was saying, and a few days later, she was dead too. I saw the bodies they brought back. Half of my mom's head was caved in, like a rotten eggplant in the field. I didn't know what had happened. I was just scared and wanted to hide. But the uncles and aunts in the village pulled me along, forcing me to kneel and cry. A dull pain gripped my chest. As Song Chong spoke of her past, there was no visible sadness. She seemed detached from it, merely recounting the events calmly. A girl who loses both parents is destined for a difficult life, but at least she had an aunt willing to take her in. Her aunt was a textile factory worker, working over 10 hours a day while still taking care of a large family. She had no energy to play the role of a kind guardian, so Song Chong grew up cautiously, under the roof of her aunt's household, until she entered middle school. Suddenly, my life got better. My uncle no longer made sarcastic remarks about my existence at the dinner table. My cousin stopped complaining that I was taking his things. Even the uncles in the village became kinder to me. They would joke with me and even give me small gifts. Song Chang's voice grew quieter as she put her bloody fingers into her mouth to suck on them. Psychology books say that this is a form of self-comfort. A child in their early teens cannot distinguish between good and evil, let alone recognize the claws hidden beneath a facade of kindness. These claws slowly tear a person apart when they are most vulnerable. At 13, Song Chong became their prey. A little bit of kindness, along with insignificant favors, was all it took to buy the loyalty of this naive girl. "Ms. Lin, I feel so filthy, you know." Song Chang's voice was filled with self-loathing. I'm really so filthy. A few packets of snacks, a bit of a smile, and I was all over them. Why am I so filthy? This isn't your fault. I wanted to hug the girl in front of me, but since we were in a detention center, I could only offer comfort through words. At that moment, I hated my own limitations more than ever, unable to truly console the girl before me. When I looked up again, Song Chong was already in tears. Ms. Lin, I really didn't know it was wrong. I thought it meant people liked me. Do you understand? I thought it meant my uncle finally accepted me. I didn't know what it really meant. The village uncles would joke with Song Chong, their hands slipping to her waist, pretending to check if she had grown up. Her uncle demanded that she sit on his lap to pour him wine, lifting her shirt to rub her belly. No one ever taught her the boundaries between people. She mistook the sugar-coated poison for love, believing in it for 20 years. And it all came crashing down when she saw Tao Zi selling flowers. She vomited, not because of Tao Zi's obsequiousness, but because she saw in her the stupidity of her own past 20 years, a festering wound that had been bleeding all along. When Song Chong spoke of her past, she was merely regretful. But when she mentioned Tao Zi's parents, an unprecedented hatred surged within her. I went through a lot of trouble to find Tao Ning's parents and figure out her family's situation. Tao Ning's father is a salesman. When his performance is good, he earns 7,000 or 8,000 a month. When it's bad, 3,000 or 4,000 is common. Her mother is a housewife, just doing housework and taking care of the kids. Oh, and Tao Ning has a 3-year-old brother who is very spoiled. Do you know why she's named Tao Zi? Because her family wanted more children. They were hoping for a boy, so they named her Tao Zi. Ugh, what a load of crap. Song Chong spat angrily. She was numb to her own pain, but she was filled with fury over Tao Zi's situation. I found Tao Ning's parents and told them that because of Tao Ning's good looks, she could be a child model and later a child star. I signed a contract with them, promising to pay them 10,000 yuan every month. They didn't care if I was a scammer, if Tao Ning would be in danger, or if being a child star would be exhausting. They only cared about when the 10,000 yuan would arrive. Ms. Lin, do people like that even deserve to be parents? When Song Chong graduated from middle school, her aunt told her, I've done my duty by raising you to 16. From now on, you're on your own. With 1,000 yuan given by her aunt, Song Chong left that small village and came to the city. To survive, she did many jobs, waitress, hostess, standing in the sun wearing a mascot costume to attract customers. At her lowest point, she survived on a single pack of instant noodles for 3 days. 10,000 yuan was not a small amount for her, but Song Chong was willing to give it up for Tao Zi. Why? I couldn't help but ask, why are you willing to give so much for Tao Ning? I thought she would talk about psychological compensation or something similar to make up for her own past. But Song Chong just stared blankly at me, her mouth opening and closing several times without making a sound. I don't know. I never thought about it. Maybe it's gratitude. If it weren't for her, I might have continued living in a daze, mistaking those disgusting things for love. I also don't want her to grow up like me, to look back one day and realize the harm that was done. A sourness rose from my chest to my nose, tears welling up in my eyes. I turned my head slightly and quickly wiped them away. Song Chong was more perceptive than I had imagined. She instantly grabbed my left hand and gently squeezed it. I once thought that hardship had made me unbreakable, but I was still moved by this crystal-clear heart. A girl who had never been treated kindly was willing to do her utmost to lift up another girl who had nothing to do with her. And at this moment, she was still trying to comfort me. Ms. Lin, will you visit Ning Ning again? Can you pass a message to her for me? Song Chong changed the subject. I raised my phone to start recording. On camera, Song Chong made exaggerated and funny faces. But by the end, her lips trembled and her expression faltered, unable to hide her sobs. Tao Ning, I'm your sister. You have to take care of yourself. The second time I met Song Chong, I brought her a drawing as a gift. It was drawn by Tao Ning, a woman with short red hair holding a child's hand, standing by the sea, with a few seagulls in the sky. The strokes were childlike, and the colors uneven, but the moment Song Chong saw it, she burst into tears. She pointed at the drawing and explained to me, "I promised Ning Ning that I would take her to see the sea someday." She remembered. The red hair, because I told Ning Ning that my favorite color is red. Song Chong laughed and cried at the same time. She remembered everything. She remembered everything. Their relationship hadn't been smooth initially. In fact, it was quite confrontational at times. When Song Chong took Tao Ning home, she soon realized that raising a child wasn't easy. She couldn't understand why Tao Ning acted out due to a lack of security and couldn't tolerate a child's boundaryless disruptions. It took them a long time to coexist before Song Chong understood that people need more than just food and water. They need love and education. Song Chong had never experienced love or proper education herself, so she didn't understand. She was just muddling through, trying her best until a conflict finally erupted. The trigger was Longa. Song Chong lived in an apartment that Longa had rented for her, and he would stay over a few days each week. During these days, Tao Ning would act unusually affectionate, flaunting herself in every way. Tao Ning would wear clothes inappropriate for her age, and she'd skillfully climb onto Long Ji's lap, feeding him grapes one by one, while throwing provocative glances at Song Chong as she walked in. Song Chong was stunned by the sight. Then her hands and feet went numb, and she forgot everything, acting purely on instinct as she screamed and pulled Tao Ning to the ground. "Do you have any shame?" Song Chong shouted. "How can you be so shameless? How dare you climb onto a man at your age?" Song Chong could no longer recall how that day ended. She only remembered the small figure of Tao Ning lying on the ground, her eyes filled with shock, fear, and a hint of wounded pride from having her secret exposed. All the complex, overwhelming emotions, as fierce as a storm, eventually crystallized into a single tear on Tao Ning's face, which then lodged deep in Song Chang's heart. Tao Ning got up from the floor and quickly ran back to her room. Song Chong crouched by her door and stayed there all night. I didn't know what to do. Song Chong held the drawing close to her chest and said, "But I understand her. This is how her parents raised her, so these behaviors are all she knows. Really, I truly understand her. We've had similar pasts. I understand her." Song Chong kept repeating herself, worried that others might misunderstand her little Tao Ning. After that day, they began to interact more cautiously. One was afraid of being sent away, and the other feared causing more harm. They were like two young, newly grown animals, tentatively testing each other's boundaries, learning to coexist. Lin Laosher, it didn't take long for me to realize who was truly at fault. It was Longa. Ning Ning is just a child who doesn't understand anything, but could Chen Long not understand either? I can't keep being with him like this. Sooner or later, it will corrupt Ning Ning. Chen Long has a wife, and even the assets he boasts about actually belong to her. I came to this city at 16, with no education and no skills. To survive, I took any job I could find. I had no money, so I had to eat the leftovers from customers every day. I've really had enough of that life. Always living under someone else's roof, always having to read people's faces. To make a bit more money, I started working at a bar selling drinks. It was during that time I met Chen Long. I couldn't bring myself to blame a girl who had never received a proper education for becoming a mistress. She had never encountered kindness on her journey, and she was merely following her instincts, searching for love and someone to depend on. Song Chong had thought about relying on herself, but she faced harassment and obstacles time and time again. Society often pushes beautiful yet powerless girls into that pit, wrapped in honey. Rather than saying Song Chong became Chen Long's mistress, it's more accurate to say she became society's mistress. Chen Long was like the serpent that tempted Song Chong to eat the forbidden fruit. He wrapped filth in love, weaving a seductive dream that lured an inexperienced Song Chong into his trap. He told me he loved me. He said he and his wife had no feelings for each other, but he had to stay with her out of responsibility, so they wouldn't divorce. He said he was in so much pain, so repressed, and that I was his lifeline. Because of me, he could keep going. He pursued me for half a year before I agreed. Song Chong laughed at herself. It wasn't until Ning Ning came along that I realized it was all lies. This wasn't love. I had already sensed something was wrong, but no one had ever treated me so well. I couldn't let go. But he shouldn't have condoned Ning Ning's behavior, so I knew I had to leave him. Song Chong brought up the breakup during a candlelit dinner. Lying on Qinlong's chest, the sound of his heartbeat made her eardrums throb. "Let's end this," Song Chong said. Qinlong paused, then chuckled, full of disdain for Song Chong. "How will you survive without me?" "If I can get a bite to eat, I can survive." The cigarette butt pressed into Song Chang's arm as Qinlong's warm facade vanished, replaced by cold indifference. "I'm spending tens of thousands on you every month. Don't push your luck. Do you think you're something special? Don't you dare get cocky with me." A ding signaled a message on Song Chang's phone. After checking it, her eyes turned bloodshot as she stared at Qinlong. "Behave yourself. Those photos are just the beginning. Don't force me to send them out." Qinlong was smug. He intimidated her like a dog trainer, then soothed her afterward. "All right, babe, stop causing trouble. As long as you listen, those photos and videos will stay between us." After the storm passed, Qinlong left, and Song Chong lay in bed like a broken doll. She let her tears fall, trickling into her ears, and let the burn on her arm throb in pain. But just as she was at her most vulnerable, Taozi walked in. That little girl, with a serious face, wiped away her tears with her tiny hands and started singing a lullaby in her childish voice. "The dark sky lowers. Bright stars follow. Fireflies fly. Fireflies fly. Who are you missing? The stars in the sky are weeping." After that night, their bond deepened. An invisible but strong thread connected them. "Song Chang give Teo say a new nin, Teo Ning." She said, "Lin Laosher, I'm not well educated, so I can't think of a good name. I just want her to have peace in the future." Lin Laosher, I used to just endure everything. However people treated me, I would just accept it. That was the first time I ever resisted. Song Chang's eyes sparkled, her brows relaxed, and a smile spread across her face. I sent all those photos and videos to his wife. Song Chong was strikingly beautiful, with a boyish charm. When she smiled, her cheeks puffed up, revealing 2 small canine teeth, giving her an air of youthful playfulness mixed with an irresistible allure. But in that moment, my heart tightened, my brows furrowed, and all the words I wanted to say stuck in my throat. The stack of explicit photos forced its way into my thoughts. Seeing my concern, Song Chong reassured me, "I'm not afraid of these things. I have no family, no one who cares about me anymore." She added, "I wasn't trying to provoke her. I just wanted to give her something to hold over Qinlong. Whether she divorces him or stays, she now has leverage. I hurt her, and this is the only way I can make up for it." In July, on a sunny morning, Song Chong packed up a few essentials, and they spent the day at an amusement park in the eastern part of the city, indulging in everything Tao Ning had ever dreamed of doing. That night, they had a picnic in the park and then, under the cover of darkness, boarded a bus. The wind blew in through the half-open window, tangling their hair. Song Chong patiently tucked Tao Ning's hair behind her ears again and again, repeating the motion countless times. Finally, Tao Ning reached out and held her hand. In the quiet bus, the 2 girls held hands, listening to each other's breaths, sharing warmth. "Don't be afraid, Ning Ning. Jia is here. Jia is here." Song Chong kept repeating those words throughout the journey, unsure if she was comforting Tao Ning or herself. Life isn't a feel-good drama. They didn't have much money, and Tao Ning's household registration was still in someone else's hands. Song Chong could only take her to the countryside to lie low for a while. She thought, "There's plenty of time. We'll figure it out later." She thought, "There's still a long way to go." But their peace lasted only 3 days. On the 3rd morning, Song Chong was woken up by the incessant ringing of her phone. Every call was from Qinlong. What began as gentle persuasion soon turned into enraged threats. The final message was a chilling warning. As she stared at the words on the screen, her hands began to tremble uncontrollably. "You better hide forever, because if I find you, the first to die will be Taozi." She was terrified, more so than when she had stood naked at 13, being examined by her uncle. She could clearly hear her teeth chattering, feel the muscles in her legs spasming. It was as if all her blood was rushing to her chest, ready to revolt and escape her body. Song Chong gave me a bitter smile. "Lin Laosher, I'm not smart, and I have no skills. All I could do was keep moving with Tao Ning, living in constant fear, hiding wherever we could. During that time, the thing I feared most was a knock on the door. I was terrified that one day, when I stepped outside, I'd see Qianlong standing there. But Ningning was so good. When we moved at night, she was so tired that she couldn't keep her eyes open. That little body would rest on my shoulder, her breath tickling my ear. She said, 'Jia, thank you.'" Song Chang's voice choked up, and she took a deep breath, trying several times before she could speak again. She also said, "Jia, I love you." Qianlong stayed calm for a while, and that was the happiest period of Song Chang's 20 years. The photos had the desired effect. Qianlong's wife, Wang Meixia, was resolute. She gathered all the evidence and dealt Qianlong a fatal blow. Wang Meixia wanted a divorce, but Qianlong refused. When the photos were revealed, Qianlong was stunned. He had never expected that the 16 or 17-year-old girl he had been with could be so ruthless. He dropped to his knees, crawling towards Wang Meixia and clinging to her legs. "Darling, it's all her fault. I really love you." Wang Meixia didn't speak. She simply slapped Qianlong across the face. She was a tough woman from the rough streets, well-versed in all sorts of tricks. Qianlong's manipulation might work on a young girl, but not on her. "Go to hell." Qianlong, in a fit of rage, retorted, "I've had enough of this. I'm sick of looking at your face every day. You think you're something special just because you have some money? You're always throwing tantrums. Am I in debt to you? Go to hell. I'm done with you." The expected conflict didn't happen. Wang Meixia continued to look down on him from her high position, making him appear even more like a clown. After a long silence, Wang Meixia spoke up, "As a married couple, if you leave on your own, I'll let you keep some dignity. But don't think you'll take a single penny from me." "Why should I?" "You can try if you want. I don't mind sending you to jail." Qianlong knew the dark deeds he had done over the years. He could only leave in disgrace, like a stray dog. He blamed everything on Song Chong, his anger and hatred building up. In an attempt to find Song Chong, he resorted to contacting Tao Ning's parents. At first, they pretended to refuse to help, despite the promise of 10,000 yuan. When Qianlong offered 3,000 yuan, Tao Ning's parents agreed without hesitation. After receiving 3 calls, Song Chong hesitated for a long time before answering. "Miss Song, how have you been lately?" The voice on the phone was probing. "Fine," Song Chong replied curtly. "The money has been paid in advance. Please don't contact me unless necessary." Hearing Song Chang's attitude, the caller became anxious and quickly said, "Don't hang up, Miss Song. I'm calling about Taozi. I know Taozi is busy with modeling gigs, but children still need to go to school. Do you need her household registration and other documents? Primary education is compulsory. She can't miss it." Tao Ning's parents spoke with such precision that Song Chong hesitated for a long time holding the phone. She knew the call was suspicious, but was concerned about Tao Ning's education. She struggled all night, tossing and turning on that unstable little bed, only the creaking of the bed frame as company. In the morning, Song Chong decided to send Tao Ning to school. The period of stability had eroded her vigilance. No matter how long she could hide, she would eventually have to deal with these matters. Even though the situation was supposed to be over, the thought of it still made Song Chong tremble. Her chest heaved, seemingly unable to breathe. She said, "Lin Laosher, this is the decision I regret the most in my life." August 19th marked the 5th month since Song Chong had met Tao Ning. She had everything prepared, planning to send Tao Ning to school on September 1st. Song Chong envisioned countless times, Tao Ning starting elementary school, then middle school, falling in love, taking exams, graduating from college, finding a decent and stable job, perhaps even meeting a caring and gentle partner, getting married, and living a happy life. Just thinking about it brought Song Chong happiness, but all of that was shattered. The anticipated meeting didn't happen. Song Chong waited in the agreed cafe from noon until closing, repeatedly calling Tao Ning's parents, but their phones were always engaged. She considered leaving but feared missing out and delaying Tao Ning's school start, so she waited until Tao Ning, exhausted, fell asleep on her back before giving up. Carrying Tao Ning home, their shadows merged under the streetlight. Song Chong felt the dampness on her back. "Sister, they don't want me anymore, do they?" Tao Ning's voice was muffled, her face buried in Song Chang's back. "Why would they? Do you like them more than me?" Song Chong awkwardly teased. "I like you, sister. If mom and dad don't like me, then I don't like them either. I only like you. Sister likes Ning Ning too." The rest of the sentence remained unspoken as Song Chong felt her legs give way. Chun Long stood in front of her. The streetlight flickered, making it hard to see his face, but she could see the reflection of the knife in his hand. Her mind went blank. Instinctively, she crouched down and set Tao Ning down. Summoning all her strength, she screamed hoarsely, "Run!" Without a moment to glance back at Tao Ning, the knife was already flashing in her sight. Song Chong used all her remaining strength to block the knife from falling, forcing out a few broken words through her clenched teeth. "Chun Long, calm down. Calm down, my ass. I've lost everything. You've ruined me completely. Die, you damned woman. D." Chun Long, consumed by rage, was about to stab Song Chong in the eyes when suddenly the knife vanished. Before Song Chong could react, she heard a man's roar. Looking down, she saw a small girl, no taller than half a person, brandishing a thin tree branch like a knight defending her princess. "Don't hurt my sister." Tao Ning's voice was stammering but firm. Chun Long, holding his bleeding calf where Tao Ning had bitten him, was furious. He kicked Tao Ning in the stomach with force. Song Chong felt everything freeze. Curses, cries, all vanished, leaving only the pounding of her heart. She saw Tao Ning fall like a butterfly, a cloud of dust rising, and then silence. Song Chong grabbed the knife and swung it. "I'll tell you, Chun Long, you either kill me today, and I'll haunt you for the rest of your life, or I kill you, and neither of us survives. Come on, aren't you going to take my life? Come and get it." Song Chong had never felt so powerful, her voice a blood-curdling roar from deep within, her hands furiously wielding the knife. She was ready to fight to the death, to drink his blood and eat his flesh. When Song Chong regained her senses, Chun Long had already fled. The knife was stained with blood, sticky and smeared on her hand, and Song Chong couldn't tell if it was her blood or Chun Long's. Tao Ning lay on the ground, breathing heavily, her little face pale. Seeing Song Chong approach, she managed a faint smile. "Sister, you're amazing." Song Chong crouched down, trying to wipe Tao Ning's face, but the blood on her hands only smeared more, making things messier and dirtier. Panicking, she rubbed her hands more vigorously, feeling like she might start crying any moment. "Why can't I clean it? Why can't I get it clean?" The more she rubbed, the worse it seemed. The streetlight cast eerie shadows through the trees, making it hard to tell if her hands were just red or if they were smeared with blood. She only knew it was dirty, and Tao Ning shouldn't have to be tainted by it. "Sister, I'm fine. I'm fine." Tao Ning pressed her face against Song Chang's chest, breathing deeply. "I'm fine, sister. I'm fine." Carefully, Song Chong lifted Tao Ning onto her back and staggered home, repeatedly murmuring, "Ning Ning, don't be afraid. I'm here, I'm here." Tao Ning rested her chin on Song Chang's shoulder, her voice barely audible. "Sister, sing me a song." "Okay, what should I sing?" Song Chong felt disoriented, unable to remember any songs. When she began singing, her voice was out of tune. "Dark sky hangs low. Bright stars follow. Insects fly, insects fly. Who are you missing? Stars in the sky shed tears. Roses on the ground wither. Cold wind blows. Cold wind blows. As long as you're here. Song Chong didn't remember how many times she sang that night. She only recalled that Tao Ning slept restlessly, her small brows furrowed, her hand tightly gripping Song Chang's thumb. On August 20th, there was no improvement. Tao Ning refused to go to the hospital, not wanting to trouble her sister and enduring the pain while eating with her mouth stuffed. She said, "I'm fine, sister, really. Look, I can eat so much. I'm really okay." On August 21st, Tao Ning began to fever, claiming she was just too hot. By August 22nd, Tao Ning could no longer even pretend to be well. She curled up, her breathing uneven. Song Chong carefully picked her up, but the child was restless. "Sister, don't take me to the hospital. I'll get better on my own. Don't think I'm a burden." How could that be? I love Ning Ning the most. If I'm uncomfortable, can Ning Ning take me to the hospital, okay? Song Chong took the almost delirious Tao Ning to the operating room. The hospital, suspecting domestic abuse, immediately reported it to the police. When the officers arrived, Song Chong was still waiting outside the operating room. Tao Ning's parents soon showed up as well. Tao Ning's mother slapped Song Chong several times, crying on the floor and accusing Song Chong of kidnapping. Song Chong was briefly shocked but then fell silent, accepting the accusations without explanation or resistance. She obediently got into the police car and confessed to everything. Tao Ning's parents insisted they only thought Song Chong was from a modeling agency and that taking the child away was kidnapping. They also found media outlets to widely publicize the story, quickly creating a personal brand and gaining tens of thousands of followers. "Why didn't you defend yourself?" I asked, puzzled. "I've ruined myself. It's just like that now." Ning Ning, though, she's so young. Teacher Lin, Ning Ning is so small, so well-behaved. Her life shouldn't have any blemishes. If others find out she was sold, what will happen to her? She'll be pointed at and mocked. Song Chong spoke with deep seriousness. This was the best solution she could come up with, a sacrifice akin to a moth to the flame, all to secure a clean slate for Tao Ning. But Ning Ning's life wasn't good. I've realized this. If Ning Ning goes back to that home, it would truly destroy her. Song Chang's eyes were filled with confusion. She took my hand, asking earnestly, "Teacher Lin, was what I did right?" "I don't know. Was it right?" I gently patted her hand, giving her a reassuring answer. "It was right. You did the right thing." Lawyer Zhou was very professional. She helped Song Chong appeal, and due to the ample evidence and Tao Ning's accusations, the charge of trafficking was not established, leading to Song Chang's acquittal. When Song Chong saw Lawyer Zhou for the last time, she seemed awkward, wringing her fingers. "I don't have any money now. Can I pay the lawyer's fee in installments?" Lawyer Zhou waved her hand. "I've already received it. As a lawyer, I don't do losing deals." Song Chong was a bit taken aback, not knowing who had paid for her lawyer. I spoke up. "It was Wang Meixia. She hired the lawyer for you. She said she didn't blame you. Everything was Chenlong's fault. Her marriage was already dead. The divorce was just a matter of splitting assets, like cutting flesh for blood. Your photos came at the right time. This was her way of returning the favor. As for Chenlong, you don't need to be afraid anymore. He's in prison for intentional injury. Wang Meixia has a lot of leverage. Even if Chenlong is released, he won't dare to trouble you again." I pondered, "Song Chong, your life hasn't been ruined." Her first 20 years were full of hardship, never encountering a good person, believing she had found support and true love, only to discover another abyss. But things were different now. She had Tao Ning, experiencing genuine affection without ulterior motives, and Wang Meixia, a righteous woman who, despite past grievances, offered timely help. Song Chong nodded firmly. At the entrance of the detention center, it was Tao Ning who came to pick up Song Chong. The child's face was tense, but it relaxed into a smile when she saw Song Chong. She ran a few steps and threw herself into Song Chang's embrace. Black sky hanging low. Bright stars following. Insects fly. Who are you missing? Stars in the sky shed tears. Roses on the ground wither. Cold wind blows, cold wind blows. As long as you're with me. Song Chong held Tao Ning close, tears in her eyes as she smiled. Sister won't leave you. From now on, I'll always be with you. Dear Song Chong, I hope this letter finds you well. It has been 2 months since we last met, and during this time, I have constantly revisited our conversations. Your strength is what brought this interview to life. However, I realize that I haven't shared with you the original intention behind my interviews. 25 years ago, I witnessed a brutal murder. The perpetrator was my own mother. She used a small packet of rat poison to kill 3 people: my father, my grandmother, and my younger uncle. I saw everything: administering the poison, the ingestion, the poisoning effects, the struggle, and the eventual deaths. To some extent, my indifference is a product of that murder. My mother was bought, a woman serving 2 brothers, a domestic slave by day and a prostitute by night. She did all the heavy labor and endured all the beatings. She never had a moment of rest. She wanted to escape, to die with them, but everything stopped because of me, her child. Her outburst was not due to physical abuse or mental humiliation. It came when she discovered a conspiracy. I was to be sent away to be exchanged for a bride for the younger son. Pleas and persuasion were useless, so she chose to poison the whole family with rat poison while cooking. The porridge was fragrant and thick, and the 3 drank it all. Soon after, they fell to the ground convulsing, foaming at the mouth. Mother ignored their pleas for help, looking at them disdainfully like a goddess, and spat at them. She did not flee but quietly sat in the yard, guarding the 3 corpses until the police broke in. From the time of the murders to her execution was just a month, and it took me 20 years to emerge from it. In 2014, I began conducting interviews with female criminals, aiming to uncover the tragic histories behind their crimes. I hope to shed light on the injustices and to reveal the cries and resistance of women hidden beneath these crimes. Over the years, I have met many female prisoners who, due to domestic violence, sexual assault, and gender discrimination, were forced into crime, either intentionally or unintentionally. I feel nothing but pain and frustration for their experiences. Song Chong, I see in you the same strength as my mother's, a self-sacrificing, pure form of female solidarity, a beacon for the unity of the underprivileged. Beyond the competition between women, there is more empathy and mutual rescue, as seen between you and Tao Ning, and between Wang Meixia and you. The bonds you share redefine female relationships. I have received much encouragement from readers about you, and like them, I write this letter with blessings. Best wishes. By the way, my original name was Lin Jianenvi. After reaching adulthood, I changed my name. Though others may look down on me, I see myself as precious. My name is Lin Xionging. Lin Xionging.